2,000 years ago, this hill was one of the richest and most important centres of the Roman Empire. A town built around a weapons arsenal on the Danube River in northwest Bulgaria.
It was one of the biggest towns along the Danubian, the limes, I mean the boundary of the Roman Empire in the Roman period.
Today, Ratsiaria could have been a tourist attraction to rival those in Italy and Greece, but there's not a tourist in sight. Instead, with the authorities standing by, illegal treasure hunters, backed by powerful mafias, have turned Ratsiaria into a wasteland. The treasure hunters don't care about the history that they're destroying when they plunder these areas. We've only been here a little while, and in that time we've found part of a tombstone and some human bones, including part of a skull and some teeth. The Romans sent their dead to the afterlife prepared, carrying coins in their mouths. So whoever found these teeth found coins and probably much more.
I think that Ratsiaria is one of the best examples of the horrible situation with archaeological heritage in Bulgaria and the weakness of the government and the system for preservation of the archaeological heritage. Can you imagine one of the very, very big towns from the Roman period has been destroyed in the last 20 years by machines? We will never know the history of one of the biggest times in Thrace from the Roman period.
At one time, 17 bulldozers were counted here, ripping through the earth. The black market trade in antiquities is the only line of work at the bottom of the hill in the neighbouring village of Archar. I was offered a range of items as soon as I arrived. From pieces of pottery to coins, jewellery and stone and bronze figurines.
Значи много лесно е, всеки може да получи. Това се знае. Банярството го има навсекъде. Точно в това в село. Може би сте видели, щом са ви предложили. По-натам е ясно.
This local man freely admits to being one of up to 600 people in this village who dig for a living. So many?
Толкова. Всичко копа на кирка, на ръкана. Повечето хора много малко пари изкарват. Много малко хора взимат голями пари. И това не сме ние. Копачите.
A joint Bulgarian-Italian archaeological expedition in the 1980s excavated a small part of Ratsiaria and uncovered these amazing artifacts, now displayed at a nearby museum. But since the fall of communism, most of the riches have disappeared into private collections in Europe and beyond. Treasures worth hundreds of millions of dollars that Bulgaria has lost forever. Ventislav Gergov has been an archaeologist for 30 years. He's a specialist in the Neolithic period or late Stone Age, and his best-known discoveries are some 7,000-year-old ceramics and one of the earliest gold artifacts in the world. To get a sense of the scale of the illegal treasure hunt, Gergov takes me on a tour. You don't have to go far to find incredibly significant historical sites, like this windswept field just off the main road behind a petrol station. But it's the same old story. There are signs of fresh digging all over the place.
Там също погледни, тук, навсякъде. Това е пак от този съд. Друга паничка, пак тя керамична. Ето това по-голем съд, това е дръжкова амфора. Въобще много керамика. Тъжно ме, като виждам това нещо, но то не е за първи път и винаги ние се натъждаваме и ми е приятно, че си тръгвам от този обект.
The petrol station attendant has more bad news.
Там пак също копаха.
Къде? В онзи бер там?
Не.
Като на камиона?
Ето тук тази гора, където булдозер се окачи, нали? Камион голем се окачи.
Next on Gergov's depressing tour is a 5th century fortress. First excavated in the 1930s, Gergov worked here on another section in the 70s.
Мостта, която вари тук, това е кула крепост на колето. Се вижда, която голяма част е разрушена от нашите приятели маняри.
Even the parts that had previously been excavated have now been upturned.
Те са, може да се каже, че са почти катастрофални, тъй като голяма част от това, което е било проучено, което е запазено и било все пак в някакъв вид запазен, консервиран, те всичко се разрушили в стремежите да тъсат. Влизайки под основите на стените, подкопавайки ги, те стените след време от пътя на гравитация се разрушават. Тези стени са събарени.
A young man appears and tells us he often sees men digging here, including some very recently.
4 човека са били. Носиха са кирки в едно като един чувал така носят са. И 4 човека и там копаят се. Чувам, че ще чукат там, така и копаят се.
Те живеят от нещо и от нещо, но не е това пътя да се разрушиш богатството националното, което е такова. Всъщност ние си убиваме кокошката, която носи златни яйца. Това е манярство реално погледнато.
Even so, Gergov says he doesn't blame the hunters as much as he does the authorities.
И не са виновни те, виновни са законите, виновни все пак и ситуацията, но държавата не си изпълнява законите. Законотворците и тия, които съдят съда и полицията не си вършат работа.
Below the fort is a picture-perfect valley where people and this river have been meandering for thousands of years.
Много хубаво.
At the end of the path, directly below the fortress, is a monastery. Gergov is disappointed to see that since his last visit, there are signs of fresh digging here too.
Това е характерно от цяла България, защото аз сега ходих в Румъния, Македония, Турция, Гърция. Те са с педи напред. Всичко се пази, съхранява се, охранява се, реконструира се и привлича туристите. Баргала, който го щип един град. Нито си пазим ценностите, нито ги съхраняваме, нищо не правим. Хубава римска керамида.
When I return to the Roman arsenal town Ratsiaria with Gergov, he shows me the only part of the 20-hectare site that's partially intact. The only reason it's survived is that the treasure hunters know archaeologists meticulously excavated here in the 1930s.
Текст навсякъде трябва да бъде, когато е проучване, да бъде такова съхранено в повече и по-малка величина запазено. Обаче виждаме ни развалини. Това е може би една хилядна част от целия обект, който бите. Така трябва да изглежда целия обект.
We follow a well-worn path looking for evidence of recent digging and find plenty.
Разкопките и манярите не спират въобще. Няма държава, няма власт, която да ги спре. Въпреки че се оплакват от полицаите, както виждаш, нито полицаи видяхме, нито хора, които могат да се грижат за обекта.
Then we spot some treasure hunters at work. I'm going to go up this hill and see if I can get a shot of them digging, but they're not going to be happy seeing me here, so I've got to be a little bit careful and quiet. I make my way up a small hill to get a vantage point without being seen. I can make out several diggers and one man with a metal detector. Then I realize Gergov has marched in to speak to them. But when I reveal myself, things get quickly out of hand. One of the men lunges at Gergov with a shovel, and another grabs rocks to throw at me. I quickly put my camera down. It was only then that we realised there are many more of them than we'd thought. They hurl abuse, then a death threat. But then, luckily for us, they decide to run away.
Казаха, че тази заплаха мен не ме касае и не се знае какво ще стане. И да внимават, че не знаят какво си имат работа. И това беше цялото. Беше напрегната ситуацията, защото те са 12 човека, ние бяхме само 3. Обаче така е, някой път от тях те са по-бедни, други са въоръжени, имат пушки, пистолети, имат и може да има стига до стрелба и заплашват по-жестоко.
After years of inaction, some say collusion, the state says it's now getting serious. At police headquarters, I meet Volodya Velkov, in charge of combating the plunder of Bulgaria's cultural heritage. He blames the local population's apathy.
Значи за много други престъпления имаме съдействие. Тук колаборацията е малко...
But Diana Gergova blames the legal system. And despite stricter anti-trafficking laws introduced in April, she fears nothing much will change.
There are more than 200 different cases sent to the court. Nobody has been sentenced, and as you have seen, they continue to destroy.
Can you give me an idea of how many people are arrested for treasure hunting in an average month or an average year, or even a comment about how many have been arrested since these new stricter laws?
Така, колко са хората, обаче не мога да ви кажа, защото не съм мислил по този въпрос.
Gergov wants me to meet a colleague of his currently excavating a Neolithic Stone Age site in this valley. Georgy Ganetsovsky found the only way to deal with the treasure hunters was to let them work alongside him.
Опитът ми е показал, че властта не успява да се справи с този проблем.
He knows this site contains no metal, so he let aggressive treasure hunters search with their metal detectors. When they found nothing, they left him alone.
И търся свой начин да преодолявам този проблем. Но с сила, заплахи или уповаване на властта за момента не става.
On the hill behind him is a Byzantine fort from the early Middle Ages, where the treasure hunters literally blast the loot out of the ground.
Че ние постоянно чувахме една мощна канонада, която идваше от взривовете, които взривяваха върху това кале. Аз не съм ходил там и не искам да стъпя, защото това, което ще видя, ще бъде много болно за мен.
Since the rise of capitalism, Bulgaria has been plagued by organized crime.
The mafia quickly discovered that it could raise huge profits from organizing this type of crime, from illicitly trafficking goods and selling them to Western markets, so it became one of their favorite businesses.
Lawyer Todor Chobanov prosecutes cases of theft and trafficking of antiquities.
They are very willing buyers that will easily, give you huge amounts of money for your artifacts and goods, and those rates of profiting are comparable to the rates of profiting you have in drugs.
Petar Dimitrov likes to call himself a collector. We meet in a modern sculpture park to discuss his trade. He's required by the new law to register his collection, in effect to hold it in trust for the state, but he flatly refuses.
Обикновеният човек мисли, това, що ме е в земята, намирам гърне с монети, то е мое. И не отива в музея, няма да го предам, то си е мое. Ако държавата ми го плати, нека да отиде в музея. Няма такъв луд колекционер, който по новия закон да си регистрира колекцията.
He explains his position by accusing the police of involvement in the organised racket.
Обявявайки един колекционер една колекция за 100 000 примерно евро, утре, ако не дойдат полицаи, ще дойдат бандити, формирани от полицаите, ще го оберат, ще го отвлечат, ще му отрежат главата и до тук. Няма такъв луд колекционер, който по новия закон да си регистрира колекцията.
You could imagine that if there is a museum willing to give $1 million for a single vase, for a single Greek vase, which they acquire here illegally for $10 or $20 or $50 from, illiterate looters, you could imagine that if this situation exists, there will always be great temptation.
After much negotiation, and when I promised to conceal their identity and our location, some treasure hunters agreed to take me to one of their favourite spots.
Нали, римска крепост. А около него, нали, посредствено е селището, нали, с Рим, Византия, нали, Тракия преобладава, праистория, нали, от праистория до Византията. Даже и малко от Турция, нали. Най-нагорния слой.
Many treasure hunters are well informed. They study the catalogues from the auction houses and they know exactly what they're looking for.
Това тук предполагаме, нали, че е входа, нали, на крепостта.
When the Romans built their fortress on the top of this cliff, it offered them protection from attackers, but it doesn't help today. They search mainly for gold and other metals. Ancient ceramics don't stand much chance against their picks and shovels.
Това е от съд. Глинен съд. И прави история.
So is that valuable for you?
Не, какво да ценно? Ако е цяло, примерно, нали, нещо струва, но така счупено трябва да се сбира.
Maybe it was the whole thing, but it just got broken with the shovel.
Не, ние работим внимателно, нали, за тях търсиме.
These men occupy the lowest rung of the treasure hunting ladder. Unemployed since the fall of communism, they say they have no other choice.
Тогава нямаше време.
Заводи имаше, фабрики, па сега вече ги...
От сутрин до вечер на работа, кога да ходиш по горите? Имаше много работа и не ти даваха да стоиш без работа, първото. Искаш, не искаш там.
Do you have any sympathy for these people? I mean, some of them are doing it quite tough. There's no work out in these villages.
No. I think that there shouldn't be any excuse. Poverty is not an excuse, I think. The question is how you use your knowledge for something which is legal, for something which is creative, for something which is positive, or for illegal and for the robbery of your country. So.
Няма радост.
Say, for example, you find something very valuable. What do you do with that?
Даваме го в музея. Ние сме честни момчета, работим точно. Мога ни похвалят.
Come on, we know you don't give it to the museum, so what do you really do?
Не го давам в музея, какво го прави?
Дай да го намерим, пък ще помислим това.
Който извади по-добри пари, това ще вземе, не знаеш какво се прави. Това е близко до акъл.
Picking over Bulgaria's past may make these men a few dollars. But the loss to the country's heritage is incalculable.